flicker of danger with a gleam behind those eyes. Familiar stranger, known him since I first learned to lie. Feels like a freight train tearing up and down my spine. I'm barely breathing, step by step. We're out of time, but if he keeps on coming, if he keeps on coming, if he keeps on coming, I won't make it out alive. I won't make it out alive.
That's Nicole Zuraitis. If you recognize that voice, we do play quite a bit of Nicole Zuraitis' music on our show, and then that sort of led to meeting up with Nicole. She's now in the studio today with our new friend, Kat Reinhert. We're going to be talking about something called the modern songbook movement. This is something that Nicole is playing a leading role in right now, and I'm going to have them explain it, but before they explain it, I am going to make an effort to explain the need for it, and I'm going to do that in a certain way. Okay, so Jane Monheit is a really, really successful jazz singer. If you're a jazz singer, you would probably like to have a lot of Jane Monheit's success. And she came on the scene in 2000, and she has done a lot of the things that jazz singers want to do also in terms of getting themselves in front of non-jazz audiences. She's been on David Letterman and Conan O'Brien and The Today Show and Good Morning America. She's played Carnegie Hall. She's played the Hollywood Bowl. This is from an album that came out in 2024. The song is Too Close for Comfort.
Be wise, be smart, behave, my heart. Don't upset your card when he's so close. Be soft, be sweet, but be discreet. Don't go off your beat. He's too close for comfort. Too close for comfort. Please, not again. Too close to know just when to say when. Be firm.
Okay, that song is 68 years old, which by American Songbook standards is actually pretty young, and came out in the late 50s for a Sammy Davis musical, which I don't think worked out too well. It has now been recorded 272 times. Some of those are pure instrumentals, but the people whose last names you don't have to say, Ella, Frank, Carmen, Eartha, Mel, they've all done this song. And the fact that Jane Monheit, 25 years into her career, is still mining this kind of song. And it's a great song, but still mining this kind of song for her repertoire is kind of a lot of why we're here today. And so, Nicole, I'm going to hand it off to you from there. And this is no shade on Nicole, on Jane Monheit. This is just, to a certain degree, this is the music that people at least think they want jazz singers to sing.
Yeah, people love nostalgia, and I love Jane Monheit. She's one of the reasons I sing jazz, and she's one of the greatest interpreters of the Great American Songbook and jazz. And I think for me, the reason I started the Modern Songbook Society wasn't because we're sick of the Great American Songbook or what that's loosely called. There are thousands and thousands of songs and so many interpreters of song that you can never run out of songs to sing from that incredible canon. But for us, we saw a great gap between the 70s and now, and a lack of community in the jazz world, especially for jazz singers and jazz songwriters. So we're trying to bring them together and establish a community and a connection so that we're supported, so that maybe in 2050, someone's recorded 200 versions of a song by a living composer from right now.
Yeah, and Kat, I know one point that you were... did I properly introduce both of you? I feel like maybe I didn't because I was so excited. So Kat Reinhert, singer-songwriter and professor of songwriting at Berklee College of Music. Nicole Zuraitis, Grammy-winning, like, at their house, if they have like a wobbly table, they just put a Grammy underneath it, to prop it up. That's how they win Grammys. Grammy-winning jazz singer, a songwriter, pianist, producer, and arranger, and yes, founder, director, and curator of the Modern Songbook Society. So Kat, it's also just kind of interesting to think about the history of songs, and certainly 20s, 30s, 40s, into the 50s. Songs are great, but they're also sort of commodities too. You write, well, you take it. You know what I'm talking about.
I mean, 1,000%. And I think like they were the popular songs, like the songs that we now consider like American standards, they were the popular music at the time. You know, they were the things that were being written in Tin Pan Alley for other singers to sing. And there was a whole history of like songwriters writing for specific singers and trying to get their work sold to those singers so that it could kind of see the light of day. And that went for a while, actually, until sort of you get to about the 50s, where the Beatles start coming in and they're writing their own music and they're singing it, and this whole new genre of rock came in, which hadn't been there before. And then jazz sort of it just kind of stayed where it was. It didn't like move from that space of those songs that got created at that point. And I think there are a lot of reasons why, but I think one of the reasons Nicole and I have been talking about this and just really wanting to highlight and empower people to write new music for this genre so that we do in 25, 30 years have more music to pull from and also to speak to experiences that are of today's experiences, not of 1920s experiences, which are very different, I would say.
Yeah, and you're talking about how they was sometimes write for specific singers, but I also love the fact that some songs, like I Won't Dance is the one I always use as an example.
I won't dance, don't ask me. I won't dance, don't ask me. I won't dance, madam, with you. My heart won't let my feet do things they shouldn't do.
Jerome Kern writes this for some musical that I think it's called Three Sisters, and it goes to London and it bombs, and then it kind of kicks back across the ocean, but then everything was kind of going to Hollywood, which is a huge factory there. There's got a Astaire movie called Roberta. It gets into that. Dorothy Fields starts to write some new lyrics for it, which is, I think, why we got, the rhyming of Heaven Rest Us and I'm Not Asbestos. Feels like really Dorothy Fields. And so the song, it's a song, but it's also like this Amazon package that's getting shipped around to lots of different places. There isn't anything precious about this, like I tore this song out of my soul and now I'm going to sing it. But, Nicole, it's also an interesting question of, okay, so if in fact we're going to say now that we're going to have a modern songbook where the songs are therefore kind of compatible with jazz voices, what does that mean? Like what is, a jazz standard, we know it when we hear it, but we don't necessarily know how to define it, or at least I don't.
Well, there's so many threads and webs that are cast from the word jazz. And the first thing and foremost to remember is that it's Black American music. And the Great American Songbook, though it's an incredible body of work, wasn't particularly inclusive. So the modern songbook for us is to bring all a diverse cast of characters all together who are writing music. And what does that mean? It means that you're inspired by the language and the tradition of jazz, that you've studied the beauty of Black American music and jazz and really learned the language on how to sing that. But then you also have ears and have been alive, so you love all the other songwriters from Carole King, Joni Mitchell, Stevie Wonder, it goes Nina Simone, and goes on and on and on, because if you choose to only listen to the beginning, then you've decided to skip the rest of American music, which is fully shaped by Black American music. And so the Great American Songbook is first and foremost focused on inclusivity, then it's focused on community, then it's focused on storytelling, or as I like to call it, jazz lore. We want to bring back the art of jazz lore storytelling into music.
There's a way that jazz is Kat, kind of a medium where certain songs can do really well. But, I gave you guys, so we should say, after all the things that you described, Kat, then you still got a couple of people wandering around in the wilderness, Bob Dorough and David Frischberg, and there are people, they're writing songs that jazz singers are going to do. And I gave the example of Frischberg's My Attorney, Bernie.
I'm impressed with my attorney, Bernie. I'm impressed with his influential friends. He's got very big connections and I follow his directions. Bernie knows his way around and so I always do what Bernie recommends.
It's hard to imagine. I guess you can sort of imagine maybe Paul Simon covering that song or something, but for the most part, it's got to live in this environment.
It does.
And because it has but what we're about to play Nicole's coffee song, which I would sort of feel like is
one
kind
of
of
my favorites.
is kind of a cousin to maybe some of Frischberg's stuff. But what is there a way to talk about what I'm talking about?
I mean, I think there is. I think Nicole mentioned it. I think there's a nostalgic sense to a lot of that. But I also feel that there's some sort of universality, and timelessness to some of those pieces that end up in this space. And it's kind of, we were talking about this earlier because it's just hard to define it now because we don't know what's going to be sticky. We don't know what songs are going to catch someone's ear and want to be recorded 250 times or things like that. But you can kind of, by listening to a song, go, okay, that has a quality to it that I think a lot of people would relate to, but also would want to try on for their own storytelling and to tell their own stories through that song, to interpret that. And I think it's going to be really fun to have these new songs as part of a new place for repertoire finding, for young people coming up and for people just, working together to make things.
This particular song that I wrote, the coffee song, I wrote it specifically with the form in mind, AABA, which is verse, verse, bridge, verse, which is a very stereotypical jazz form, which is found in hundreds and hundreds of most of them. And so this is one of the songs where I said, I am writing this song in the same style of the Great American Songbook.
I've been around the block, they say, traveled around the world for days, and despite my wandering eye, I know that you're my guide, my darling dear barista fellow, who starts my day with some espresso. I've chosen you to make this work. The cappuccinos are just a perk. I've had the blonde roast, I've had the dark roast, I've even had the Brazilian too, but none of those roasts come close to you, 'cause I like you a latte.
Yes, you have something to
I
say.
just wanted to say something about that song, which I think is really brilliant, and that happens in a lot of these songs. And I'm a little bit of a geek about song form, so there's this verse up in the front, right?
It's very confusing because that's a verse, but it's not a verse.
And so then you get into AABA, and then later on, the whole AABA, that whole section was actually called the chorus of the song, and it's so fascinating how this stuff evolves. And I love that you wrote that because I use it when I teach my classes to explain this particular form, and it's fun. That's why I love you, Dr.
Can Berkeley Music fix that problem, please, for us? Berkeley
What
School?
problem?
The kind of slower thing that you often hear at the beginning of a song, time and again I've dreamed of adventure. That's called a verse.
It is.
But it's not the verse the way AA is the verse.
Correct.
Yeah.
And in
So
that song,
I'm
it's
saying, please fix this.
AABA has the song form that comes before that, which is called strophic, has many names. It's called strophic, verse, refrain, and AAAAA, or whatever you want to call it.
That's making it too complicated.
I mean, it's crazy.
That's not fixing it. But I think also, I feel listening to that song, and this is the second time that song has been played on this show, but you really are sort of maybe honoring some of it's like Frank Lesser could have written this song or something like that, You're kind of honoring a tradition that you're in. I don't know if you felt the weight of that or if you just wanted to write a funny song about coffee.
It's both. It's both. I mean, for me, another reason I started Modern Songbook Society is that I never found I couldn't find a place in jazz because I was writing music that wasn't necessarily swinging like that, or it wasn't necessarily AABA like that, or it didn't sound like Ella Fitzgerald sang it. So I sometimes was just going, well, I'm going to try and write a song in that style. Maybe that's a business move. Maybe it's a songwriting exercise. Songwriters, we do all sorts of things to inspire creativity, and so. You said David Frischberg before. I use the word kombucha. He uses all sorts of crazy words. You never know what you're going to discover, but setting out to I think I set that out to write that one in the style of nostalgic jazz.
So, Kat, when you were talking before, too, about that kind of shift, Alec Wilder says after 55, the amateurs took over, which is, of course, a ridiculous statement. Paul Simon and Bob Dylan are not amateurs. But that's to Alec Wilder. That's who wrote a lot of standards and songbook things. That's how it sounded to him. But in a way, the bleeding edge of that is the Brill Building. You still have Johnny Mercer and a bunch of people who wrote for big bands and stuff like that. They're part of the story. And then this new generation of songwriters, and you describe them very accurately. Sometimes it's Carole King and Jerry Goffin writing for another singer. And it's also interesting to me that, because I think a lot of the people in the Brill Building kind of honored the form that had come before. I mean, and you, I think, talked a little bit about this before the show, that idea that, I'll give my own example, but if you're writing Will You Still Love Me Tomorrow, are you doing a really different job than Rodgers and Hart writing My Romance? And so if not,
I don't think you are. Yeah. And I think, the songwriting world didn't really get away from that model. It just moved and went into different places, right? So it moved down to Nashville, like the whole songwriting community. There's still, exists in New York and LA, but songwriters writing for other for singers to sing kind of went into Nashville. And so then you had all these writers writing in Nashville for some of the biggest hits that we had. Even in the past 10 years, Sia came out of Nashville, Maren Morris came out of Nashville. All these writers who were actually writing big hits for other writers started moving in Nashville. And today it's really common. Minimum number of songwriters on a pop song these days is somewhere between 3 to 4, right? And usually it's more like 8.
Yeah, but if you sampled anybody, you're really in trouble.
It's crazy. The permissions that you have to get to do that it's insane, on the publishing side especially. But the jazz community, you saw a kind of I think we've been talking about this, a little bit of a divide or a split, not in a bad way, but just circumstantially, you had that this canon happen, and then we were talking about how jazz kind of came into academia as its foremost place for learning it, right? You didn't learn it on the streets anymore through your friends and your garages. Pop music will be happening in garage bands. You learned it now in academia, and when you put something in academia, often there are these things that come into place, like learning a canon or learning a repertoire, or how do you teach something that is wild? You have to figure out a way so that there can be standards and grades and how do you do that in a way that is authentic to the music and authentic to the style? And I think that's sometimes a sticky point in academia because there's so many moving parts and so many things that you have to pay attention to. And so then this canon just got regurgitated and learned and repertoired, and so many people that are out today in the world doing jazz have studied it in places of higher education learning because that's where you do it. And so there's not a lot of, I have 2 degrees in jazz, but none of them did I really was in the program itself. Was there any sort of compositional songwriting, for me?
That was not sort of what it was about
at
that level. And I just want to come back to this idea because you gave me a little body language on this that indicated that you had something to say about it.
I have something to say. I can't imagine.
Yeah. No, I was thinking about the Brill Building because we've been talking about doing a Brill Building show for a long time. And I gave Will You Still Love Me Tomorrow, but I think Save the Last Dance for me, I think that was written in the Brill Building. That sounds like it could be a jazz song or a standard or an American Songbook thing. And so maybe say a little bit about, and I was saying that job isn't that different from writing My Romance or, Manhattan or pick a Rodgers and Hart song. But, or is it? Is it a different job? Is writing a pop song a different job than writing a would-be American standard, modern songbook?
Well, it depends. If you're writing for the algorithm, it probably is much different because now we're living in a 90-second culture where people don't have the attention span to pay attention to a lyric. But if you look at Leibes from the start, that to me is totally reminiscent of a standard.
Don't you notice how I get quiet when there's no one else around? Me and you and awkward silence. Don't you dare look at me that way. I don't need reminders of how
Kat was just talking about academia, and another reason we started Modern Songbook Society is because I didn't come up through jazz academia, and I kept missing why people were saying to me, well, you're not necessarily a jazz singer. And I'm going, well, why? And so that's why we teamed up, because she's a doctor of music. She teaches at Berkeley. And I kind of came up through the trenches, and we just found this gap. And what defines a pop song? I don't think it's necessarily the word pop. It's about what song stands the test of time. What is timeless? What is something that someone's going to play again? And as someone who played many weddings, and many, many background gigs playing the piano in the back of a bar, I learned that so many of the songs that stood the test of time were derivative of jazz. So if I'm playing You've Got a Friend, I'm going, well, look at the harmony of this. If I'm playing Overjoyed by Stevie Wonder, I'm like, look at the harmony of this. How could you not say that this is derivative of jazz?
I think Esperanza Spalding came to the conclusion that it was. Actually, that is a song that a lot of jazz singers do, Overjoyed.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
It's brilliant.
Hey, I want to just transition as we're coming out of this segment. We're about to play a song by the great jazz artist Kat Reinhert, Birdsong, from the album Dead Reckoning. But before we do, can we talk a little bit about the song? Kat, do you want to set it up for us a little bit?
Sure. Yeah, I mean, similar to Nicole, like, I was on the scene in New York as a jazz musician, and I really started wanting to, like, write my own songs. Like, I think I have always been, at my heart, a songwriter, and the minute that I did that, the stuff that I was writing, people would say the same thing. Well, this isn't jazz. And I'm like, well, I don't understand why it's not. There's improvised solos. We're not playing like specific parts. Like every time we play it is different. And Birdsong, I mean, it kind of has a funny story. I was teaching pop theory, actually, and I had to explain how to do this particular modal movement in the pop theory class, and I was like, I couldn't find exactly what I was looking for, and so I actually used this song to show an example of what I was trying to say. And then I was also listening to Dylan McDermott, who's this Irish kind of crossover, I don't even know how to describe him, hip-hop folk artist, and he had a song about birds, and I was thinking about birds, and so that's how it came to be.
I wish I could be a bird, flying high above the city lights. But a dove or a raven, I'm not sure. Shadows shaped by white and black, I'm always chasing gray. I wish I could be a bird, whispered zephyr secrets in my ear. But a dove or a raven, I'm not sure. Whether sung by ice or fire, I'm always chasing rain. Masquerading on a wire, a line up safely, number counting. I can't escape, so I look down, wishing for the things. Can we dream for a minute? I don't know what you've done, but you did it. Time is flying and we're well within it. I don't know when you aim, but you hit it. I'm still humming, you release something. Don't you lie and say it's nothing. Don't know when you found the time, but you built this, and I'm living in it. This fire comes once a lifetime, so I dare you to feel. heart. 'Cause it ain't easy loving war when we've both been here before. But I'm yours if you call my name.
All right, that's Call My Name, parentheses, I Dare You, by Nicole Zuraitis, who's sitting here in the studio with Kat Reinhert. And if you're seeing people line up outside record shops right now, it's because the album, The Devil I Knew, drops tomorrow. That's what they're waiting for. They don't want to miss getting those copies. And so it's very appropriate anyway that you guys are here to talk about this whole idea of the modern songbook. Well, first of all, before, as we were playing this, you said that you had to defend this. What do you mean by that?
Well, this is the trauma that I've induced upon myself as a jazz singer-songwriter, and why I tried to create this community is because I listen to that and I go, well, I can imagine that someone will say, well, that's not necessarily jazz. But for me, it's like the artist's intent is always there. You can't unlearn what I've learned as a jazz singer from 25 years of studying this language. And so it's there. But I also love Alicia Keys. I grew up I'm an 80s baby. I'm a Connecticut 80s baby. And if you listen to If I Ain't Got You, that's the same kind of form almost. And it greatly influenced me as a songwriter. And here it is now on my new record, which is a jazz album. You can be both. I think it can be both.
Kat, I'm sort of astonished that these kinds of dichotomies are still in place. And it's gotten better. I do remember circa 2000 or so, Cassandra Wilson did Jimmy Webb's Wichita Lineman, and people were going, that's not jazz. That's not jazz. You can't think, that's not jazz. I'm thinking, well, sure as hell sounds like jazz the way she's singing it. Kat, this feels like a war that, it's like every year fewer people are fighting, but it's still a war.
I know. I mean, I loved that album when it came out. Oh my God, I don't know how many times I listened to Cassandra Wilson as a kid, growing up and coming into jazz, and she was doing this stuff that I was just like, wow. But yeah, I agree. I think it's a war we don't need to fight. I think it's like, let's make good music, and let's make music that people want to listen to, and let's tell stories. Let's tell really honest, awesome stories. I think one of the things that I was thinking about coming onto this was just why we want to do this. And I think as songwriters, we have this amazing gift that we get to share with the world, and that we get to tell the stories that so many people, we put words to things that so many people can't find the words to share. And they play our music or they play a song, and it speaks to them, and it speaks to something very deep within all of us. And I think that's the thing to focus on, is not whether it's a little too bit of this or a little too bit of that. Boxes are going more and more away. I even see it in the classes in which I teach, where when I was growing up, if you asked people who their famous artist was, and there were 12 people in the room, everybody's saying the same person, and I could ask that in my classes, and I'm going to get 12 different people, 11 of which I have never heard of, and the only person they all know is Taylor Swift, and so because she's and Beyonce, because they're so over the top big that you can't miss them. But everybody else is they all have their individual things, and it's oh, this is indie pop, and this is hyper pop, and this is folk pop, and this is blah, blah, blah this, and this is metal pop. And it's what? Why are we drawing these lines when it's just it's good music, it's a good song, and different kinds of sounds are going to appeal to us on different days because we feel different on different days.
I want to get into some of the other people who are going to be part of this movement. But before that, I want to, Nicole, come back to you. Something that Kat said about the reactions to her song is, I think, sort of a common thing, and we kind of talked about it, but I don't know if we've really kind of landed on it yet, which is, I think, historically, there's been a kind of a price to pay if you are a jazz singer and you want to write your own stuff. I think about somebody like Patricia Barber or somebody like that. It's kind of oh, and I'm probably, as a consumer, I've probably been guilty of this, going, oh, I don't know any of those songs. What did she do? Write them herself? How come she's not singing songs that I know already? And it's just weird, right? I mean, there's so much emphasis and pressure put on originality in other parts of the music world, but it was sort of jazz has almost been suffocating itself with its own pillow, saying, oh no, there's there's 472 songs, and that's it. You know, we don't want anybody writing any new ones. And I don't know. Can you see a little bit of? I mean, you must have felt that a little bit too. Like, yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, when I won the Grammy for an album of all original music, I was really looking and going, why was this the first time this has ever happened? There's been albums where people wrote music, but they were maybe more, we would call them compositions. And I'm going, well, why are they calling it compositions as opposed to songs? I write songs. I focus on storytelling. So I saw this gigantic gap after the Grammy win. And then I was really thinking about it because I went to see my friend Phoebe Cadis in Fairfield, Connecticut. And I sat through her whole show, and she did one cover the entire time. And my show now is pretty much 2 or 3 arrangements that I've done. And I go, wow, I was riveted, engaged the entire time. And what I realized is that songs should be seen or listened to as a listen. Songs should be listened to.
Songs should be seen and not heard.
And not heard. Yes, exactly. Yeah, that's exactly right. I'm making you a mug that says that. Songs are little books. Songs are little books, and the audience has forgotten that. They forget that when you read a book, you don't know what's coming on the next page. They forget that when you read a book, you're using your imagination. And when I sing a lyric, it's not my lyric anymore. It's now belongs to the audience. And so I think we've lost a lot of the imagination in jazz because we're so used to how good it feels to listen to something that's nostalgic. And we want to be sure that it's clear that we love the nostalgia. We love all of those songs and all those interpreters of song. But we also want to invite people to challenge the machine, to challenge being content-driven, being put into boxes, and to think when you go see a show, if you're listening to a song, be like, oh, I've never heard this before. It's like someone's reading me a short story. That's so interesting.
Well, actually, that's a nice lead in. We want you out there to hear some of the other songwriters and singers who are part of this modern songbook movement. And this is one that I've been aware of just because I'm always prowling around, listening, looking for new things to play on the radio. This is a singer and songwriter, Katie Georgi. This is Pour for the Hour from Katie Georgi. I hope I'm saying that correctly, with strings from last year.
I'll pour from 1 to 2, inquiring softly of the folks we both knew. We'll talk like we're friends and trim the loose ends, both knowing our fates once we're through. I'll pour from 2 to 3, while briefly recalling from our shared memories. Each time that we dine, the duration declines, but the distance grows emphatically. I can't ever put a face to the names you discuss. You no longer ring my line when you're all in a fuss.
So, Kat, this song to me captures the idioms of jazz standards and American Songbook so much that the whole time I'm thinking, is this like a Fats Waller song, or is this like where do I know this song from? And I mean, that's kind of interesting that she got the DNA that well.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I love this song. I think it's smart. I think it's funny. I think the melodies are so stunning. You know, and that's one thing that I think does differentiate jazz from some pop music kind of sensibilities is like the melodies tend to be like really intricate and there's so much motion in the melody too, and so much motion that just feels like, well, yeah, of course that's the way you would say that line, you know, just like up and down and pour me, and it feels like as she's talking about this, you feel like she is pouring things. You have this kind of up and down motion, which I think is really smart, and it's just brilliantly crafted.
And then she's kind of playing into it a little bit too. I'm hearing the muted horn charts and stuff like that too, making it sound, giving us that sound that we like so much.
Yeah, I think Katie George is one of the best living songwriters, and that's why we wanted to start doing collecting the songs for a book, because people should be covering that song. People with gigantic TikTok followings should be covering a song by someone like Katie, so that everybody wins.
So let's try another one. This is another songwriter that I've become very aware of, a songwriter who has, I think, a pretty interesting sense of humor at times, too. That might be the case with this particular song. This is by Venetia Gold. It's called My Sweet Kitty. Nicole did a whole dog album, so we give cats a little bit of time here, if that's really what this song is about.
Meow, 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 meow. He loves my sweet kitty. He thinks she's pretty. I think he likes her more than I find him annoying, but she adores him. I tell him she doesn't like most guys. I think he talks too much. I'd rather he talk to her. For when he whispers sweet nothings, she just can't help but purr. Ooh, yes, he loves my sweet kitty. He thinks she's pretty. There's not much we have in common, him and I, except my sweet kitty. And what a pity, 'cause he's so witty and such a pretty guy. But when he holds my hand, I feel nothing, and every kiss is a boring ordeal. He never comes to my shows or takes me to dinner. His kisses for kitty alone. That's his favorite meal, I'll take the deal. Yes, he loves my sweet kitty. He thinks she's pretty. I think he likes her more than I find him annoying, but she adores him.
Clearly somebody who just has a pet cat that they really, it's not an allegory or anything like
Never.
that. I don't
Of
think.
course.
But, so I don't know, Kat, just react a little bit as a musician or a Berkeley professor.
Okay, so I haven't heard that song before.
Okay, good. That's perfect then.
And my thought was Mink Mungus.
Yeah.
Sorry, Monk. That was hilarious. My thought was
We're not fixing that in
Mingus.
post. We're keeping it just the way you did it.
no.
Another mug.
Mungus. Got my brain. Mingus and Monk. I was like, wow, there's so much of that in that sound, that she's going. But also the whole, we were talking about Nicole's song and about David Fishberg's writing and the tongue-in-cheekness of a lot of these lyrics that kind of, I think they appeal to a lot of people because we all like to know the joke, and we all like to be in on the joke without having to think too much about the joke.
But the sneaky part of it is it's a really interesting song musically and the way that it's played here, too.
Perfectly written. Venetia, fantastic.
I mean, there's a lot to listen to. Once you get past the joke, there's a lot to listen to as well. And the reason you hadn't heard it before, I think it just dropped today. I mean, the day that we're taping.
Okay.
That's
She was
why.
excited when I texted her. I was like, that's good timing, baby.
That's right.
Let's go.
That's right. We broke this song in the future.
Yeah.
Or something, or the past, or something. All right, so we're just kind of speed dating through a few of these songs, and we have a little bit more time to talk about certain things on the other side of this. But I want to get to the end of this segment so we can come back and have time. We're going to play one more song. It's an Alex Bryson tune. You'd Better Thank the Girl I Loved Last May. Do you want to say any quick words to set this up, or?
Well, I don't often thank the internet for many things, but the internet found Alex Bryson because once we started the Modern Songbook Society Instagram, people forwarded me this wonderful composer and singer from London. And then when I was just playing Ronnie Scott's last week, we met, got together, took a couple photos, and I said, send me a tune. I'm going to play it on NPR.
Well, I'm well-dressed, well-bred, well-traveled and well-read, well brought up in every single way. But if you like the way that I kiss you, you better thank the girl I loved last May. Well, I'm astute, discreet, reliable and neat, and I always know just what to say. But if you like the way that I hold you, you'd better thank the girl I loved last May. Don't think that I don't love you. You're wonderful and true, and I know we'll last beyond the spring. But baby, now, please don't fret if I never quite forget the girl who taught me everything. Well, I pay my tax, please note. I recycle and I vote, and I read the papers every day. But if you like the way that you'd better thank the girl I loved last May.
All right, time to thank some people, starting with Dylan Reyes, the maestro, our technical producer, and Jonathan McPants, who is the producer of this episode. Thanks to both of them. They both have great musical backgrounds. It makes it a lot easier to do a show like this one. The show we're doing with Kat Reinhert, singer-songwriter and professor of songwriting at Berklee College of Music, and Nicole Zuraitis, Grammy-winning jazz singer, songwriter, pianist, producer, and arranger, and the founder, director, and curator of the Modern Songbook Society, an attempt to kind of bring into focus the fact that people are continuing to write the kinds of songs that have been jazz standards in the past and can become new jazz standards now. Before we run another song here, though, so Kat, you were talking about jazz school, and I think another thing that happens that I'm not part of this world. This is just my own pathetic little observation but I know a lot of jazz musicians and every time I host the Litchfield Jazz Festival, I know even more jazz musicians. I think, you look at a group like Lake Street Dive. They sound like they came out of jazz programs.
They did.
Yeah.
They did.
Oh, of course they did.
They came out of NEC.
Yeah.
All of them.
Yes.
Yeah.
But I think there was also but are we going to make a lot of money as strictly jazz musicians, or could we reach a bigger audience if we sounded jazzy but also sounded, and I know this is sort of a complicated terrain that we're walking across, or I'm forcing you to walk across right now.
I don't know that that's why they went the direction that they went. Yeah. The way I generally see students going is not necessarily for that commercial reason. They're going because this is the music that they're making. This is where their heart is. This is where their soul is. And I mean, when I teach the business class I teach, we're always talking about what's your why? Yeah. What are your values? Because if you sacrifice those, you might make a whole bunch of money, but are you going to be happy? Is it going to maybe that's the one-off and then you go do the things you want to do. But I don't know. I think we're making music because it speaks to us. And I mean, when I listen to Lake Street Dive, I think they're amazing. And I love listening to what they're making. And it definitely has jazz traditions in it.
Totally. And to your point, Nicole, you like Alicia Keys. I mean, most of us, I think, heard Lake Street Dive for the first time when they covered I Want You Back, the Jackson 5 tune, which, I think also goes to the thing that both of you have said. Young jazz musicians grew up with that music too. So they're going to hear jazz, but they are also going to know that. But I also think that's such an amazing cover because they found the bones of that song in a much slower way, and turned it into essentially a ballad. Yeah. And that's something that jazz people would do, right? They'd listen to that song and go, what if there's a really, really different way to do this and to bring out its genetic code.
That's the beauty of arrangement. And I feel like arrangements, especially jazz arrangements, are the gateway drug for people to jazz. Yeah. That's how a lot of people found me, was when I arranged Jolene with my husband, Dan Pugach. That arrangement brings people and they go, well, I love Dolly Parton. But that sounds, I guess, is that jazz? And we're back there again. Here we go again. I'm like, yeah, sure it is.
All right, so let's play a song by another one of the Modern Songbook songwriters. This is Allegra Levy. I don't have much of a connection to her, except that I know her mother, father, and brother. And you know Allegra pretty well, too. Let's hear What's in a Name.
Oh, what's in a name? If I called you by another, would you still be the same? And am I to blame for our future that is written in so many stars? Baby of mine, baby of mine. There are names that mean happy and names that mean spring. There are names where you know what a future might bring.
I should say, Nicole, also, Allegra just won some kind of jingle contest in New York for the Mamdani administration. It was like for childcare or something like that.
Yeah.
That's kind of cool.
Yeah, she asked me, she's like, they own all the rights to that. Should I submit to it? I was like, girl, do you care about that jingle? She's like, I was like, just do it. You're going to win. And she won. I've known her forever. She was one of my students at Litchfield Jazz Camp. I love her so much. It's brilliant.
And you want to say a little about this song?
I mean, the song is just, it's so smart. And I think, again, like it goes to that universal thing that we're talking about. Everybody feels like, why are you calling me this? Or I mean, it's even embedded in this conversation today. Like, what is in a name, you know? And why are we making it? Why does it matter? You know, if we're just trying to find good songs that kind of have a certain sound to them, you know, that's cool.
We're running out of time a little bit. This has gone really, really fast. First of all, is there going to be a Modern Songbook Society event coming up? I know you've done a few already. Is there any in the offing?
We've hosted a couple of live roundtables in New York City. We just had last week a Zoom community where anybody could come in, share a song that they wrote, singers and songwriters alike. You don't have to be a jazz singer to be part of Modern Songbook Society. We're trying to curate a book. You heard a lot of songwriters that we love and adore, but a lot of them we reached out to, and we weren't able to get them on the show, like Gregory Porter, Christy Dashiell, Kate McGarry, Peter Eldridge. You know, there's so many incredible songwriters, and ideally, we're trying to curate a book so that we can get them all together to make it easy for people to find. So, you know, people want to go to Modern Songbook Society and get involved. That'd be awesome.
That'd be great, yeah. We should say that Nicole Zuraitis' new album, The Devil I Knew, comes out tomorrow. That would be Friday, July 17th. She'll be performing also tonight, July 16th, at the Jazz Loft in Stony Brook, New York, on Long Island, and on Saturday night at the beautiful Music Mountain in Canaan, Connecticut. So we're going to close the show with another songwriter who I've become aware of. He goes by the name Vilray. He performs as Rachel in Vilray. Rachel, of course, being the lead singer of Lake Street Dive. Is there anything else you want us to kind of? We're going to do Forever Never Lasts, which is a really good title, actually. You want to set this up at all, or?
Sure. Vilray is a brilliant songwriter, hilarious, and I think one of the greatest living jazz songwriters alive. You'll hear it. You'll hear why.
You know, Kat, too, as we're closing out here, and by the way, thanks to both of you, and thanks to both of you for being here in the studio with me, which was even more fun. But I think there's also a thing about jazz, too, that it's sort of about cool cities and stuff. It's about New York. It's about London. It's about Paris. It's about Chicago. And I think with some of the songs that this duo does, I get that feeling a lot. I'm in New York with some cool people.
Yeah, I think so. And I think, you know, jazz kind of lives in cities often. And so, like, that's where the people are who are having these life experiences and stories to tell.
Yeah, I mean, you can do jazz versions of country music, but there's something very city about jazz, too. All right, well, listen, you've both been wonderful here today, and it's been a lot of fun to spend some more time with Nicole and to meet Kat Reinhert. So we're going to end with this one song, and go out and listen to get out your Tidal or your Spotify and see if you can find some Modern Songbook songs.
The F word is overrated.
So is a variegated romantic life. Ex-husband, ex-wife will always know better. Which buttons are the ones to push forever?
Rethrow the flowers.
Replant the kiss.
Nothing's amiss today, dear.
A fool will say we'll feel this way forever, but forever never lasts for very long.
We know the curtain falls on certain happy songs.
Thank